Two love stories, two different worlds. One destiny that was written long before Jamie and Claire ever existed. Imagine falling in love during a time when love itself was dangerous. When the land around you was soaked in war, when your family stood against you, and when every single choice you made could cost you everything. That is not a fairy tale. That is not fiction. That is the world that Brian Fraser and Ellen Mackenzie lived in. That is the world that Henry Beauchamp and Julia Morriston survived. In Season 2 of Outlander, Blood of My Blood is about to drag us right back into that world. Harder and deeper than ever before. If you have been waiting for this show to come back, this video is exactly where you need to be right now, because we are breaking down everything. The teaser, the story so far, what is coming next, and why Season 2 might just be the most emotional chapter this universe has ever told. Asterisk, most people who stumble onto Outlander Blood of My Blood for the first time ask the same question. They say, is this just another Outlander spinoff that is trying to cash in on the original show? And the honest answer is no. This is something completely different. This show exists to answer questions that fans of Outlander have been carrying around for years. Questions like, who were Jamie Fraser's parents, really? What kind of love did they have? And how did Claire's mother and father fall into each other's lives during one of the most brutal wars in human history? The show runs two separate stories at the same time. The first story follows Ellen Mackenzie and Brian Fraser living in the rugged Scottish Highlands during the 18th century. The second story follows Julia Morriston and Henry Beauchamp, and their story is set during World War I in Britain. These are not random characters. Ellen and Brian are Jamie Fraser's parents. Julia and Henry are Claire Fraser's parents. So every scene, every kiss, every fight, every tear you watch in this show is building toward the two people that Outlander fans fell in love. Within the very first season of the original series, what makes this show stand out is that it is not just fan service. The writers built to completely full and independent love stories. You do not need to have watched a single episode of Outlander to sit down and feel every emotion this show throws at you. But if you have watched Outlander, then you are going to experience something very rare. You are going to watch the past and understand the present in a way that almost no other prequel series has ever pulled off. That connection between the two generations is not just a storytelling trick. It is the entire heart of the show. The Highland storyline feels raw and physical. Brian and Ellen are surrounded by clan politics, by loyalty and betrayal, by a Scotland that is trying to hold itself together under enormous pressure. Their love is not soft or gentle, it is fierce. It is the kind of love that survives because both people refuse to let it die, no matter what the world throws at them. And the World War I storyline carries a completely different kind of pain. Henry and Julia exist in a world that is literally falling apart around them. There is mud and smoke and loss everywhere. And yet in the middle of all of that destruction, they find each other. That contrast between the two stories is exactly what gives this show its power. One couple is fighting the land and the clans. The other is fighting history itself. Asterisk Season 1 did not ease you in gently. It's grabbed you by the collar from the very first episode and refused to let go until the final scene left. You sitting there staring at your screen wondering how you are supposed to wait for the next season? That is the kind of show this is. Does not ask for your attention. It takes it, let us go back to where it all started. When we first met Brian Fraser, he was not the legend that Outlander fans had built up in their heads for years. He was young. He was uncertain. He was a man trying to figure out who he was inside a world that was already deciding that for him. The Fraser name carried weight in the Highlands. It carried expectation. And Brian was standing right in the middle of all of that, trying to be his own person while everything around him was pulling him in different directions. That tension was real from the opening episode, and it never went away. Ellen Mackenzie, on the other hand, walked into this story like she owned every room she stepped into. And that is not just a character choice. That is who Ellen had to be to survive in the world she was born into. The Mackenzie clan was powerful. Her brothers were proud and controlling. The idea that Ellen would choose her own path, choose her, own man on her own terms was almost unthinkable in that world. But she did it anyway. And watching that unfold across season 1 was something genuinely special. You were not just watching a love story. You were watching a woman fight an entire system just to live as herself. The Scottish storyline in season 1 built slowly and deliberately. Every episode added another layer of pressure onto Brian and Ellen. Family disapproval, clan loyalty, political tension that ran through every conversation like a current underneath still water. And what the writers did so cleverly was make you feel that pressure as a viewer. By the time Brian and Ellen were truly fighting for their relationship, you were not just observing, you were in it with them. You wanted them to win because the show had made you understand exactly what losing would cost both of them. Now shift to the other side of the world, and the other timeline entirely. Henry Beauchamp and Julia Morriston existed in a completely different, kind of suffering. World War I is not a romantic backdrop. There is nothing beautiful about it. Soldiers coming home broken, families losing everything. A generation of young men swallowed up by mud and barbed wire and silence. Not soften any of that. It put you right inside that world and made you feel the weight of it. And then it placed Henry and Julia inside that same weight and asked you to believe that love could grow in a place like that. What made their story hit so hard in season 1 was the honesty of it. Henry was not a hero in the traditional sense. He was a man doing his best in an impossible situation. Julia was not waiting around for someone to rescue her. She was carrying her own grief and her own strength at the same time. When they came together, it did not feel like a convenient plot device. It felt earned. It felt real. And that is the hardest thing for any writer to pull off. Making two people falling in love feel completely inevitable and completely surprising. At the exact same time, season 1 ended with both storylines hitting a point of crisis. Not a clean resolution, not a happy ending wrapped up neatly. A crisis. The kind of ending that changes everything that comes after it. Brian and Ellen were facing forces bigger than just the two of them. Forces that were not going to back down simply because their love was strong. And Henry and Julia were standing at the edge of something that neither of them could fully see yet, but both of them could feel coming. That final episode left both couples in a place where season 2 has no choice but to deliver something bigger. Something deeper and something more emotionally devastating than anything. Season 1 attempted. Asterisk. There is a specific feeling you get when a teaser for a show you love drops and it is done right. If your stomach drops, your brain starts running 100 miles an hour. You pause it, you rewind it, you watch it again, and then you watch it one more time just to make sure you caught everything. That is exactly what the season 2 teaser for Outlander, Blood of My Blood, does to you. It is short, it is precise, and every single second of it is doing something intentional. The first thing you notice is the tone. Season 1 had warmth in it, even during its darkest moments. There was a golden quality to the Highland scenes and a kind of fragile tenderness in the World War I storyline that made you feel like these couples still had room to breathe. The season 2 teaser throws all of that out immediately. The color is colder. The cuts are faster. The music underneath everything feels heavier. Like something is pressing down on the world these characters are living in, and the pressure is not letting up. That shift in tone alone tells you that season 2 is not going to give these couples any space to rest. Brian? Fraser appears in the teaser, and the first thing you notice is that he looks different. Not older exactly, but harder. Season 1 gave us a Brian who was still finding himself, still figuring out what kind of man he was going to be. The Brian in this teaser has already made those decisions. He has been shaped by everything that happened in season 1. and the shape it left behind is sharper and more serious than anything we saw before. That single visual shift tells you more about where his story is going than any dialogue could. The highlands behind him look wilder too. Less like a romantic backdrop and more like a living thing that is working against him. Ellen Mackenzie, in the teaser, is where things get genuinely interesting. There is a moment, and if you blinked, you missed it, where Ellen is standing completely alone in a wide open space, and the way the camera frames her is deeply deliberate. She is not standing like someone who is lost. She is standing like someone who has already made a decision and is waiting for the world to catch up with her. That one shot reframes her entire character going into Season 2. Season 1 showed you Ellen fighting for her relationship. This teaser suggests that Season 2 is going to show you what Ellen is willing to sacrifice for it. Those are two completely different stories, and the distinction matters enormously. The Henry and Julia portion of the teaser is the one that is going to sit with Outlander fans the longest. The World War I setting is still there, but the way it is being used has changed completely. In Season 1, the war was a backdrop, a pressure that existed around Henry and Julia without always being at the center of their story. In this teaser, the war is not in the background anymore. It is right in the middle of everything. There are images in those few seconds that suggest Henry is being pulled back into a world that nearly destroyed him once already. And Julia is standing in the kind of stillness that only comes right before something breaks. What the teaser refuses to do is give you answers. And that restraint is a creative choice that deserves respect. Lesser shows use teasers to tell you exactly what is coming so you feel excited. This teaser makes you feel uneasy. It makes you feel like the ground underneath these characters is not as solid as it looked at the end of Season 1. Every image raises a question. Every sound choice adds weight rather than relief. By the time the star's title card appears at the end, you are not sitting there feeling hyped in the usual way. You are sitting there feeling genuinely worried about people who are not even real. And that is the mark of a teaser that is doing its job perfectly. The other thing worth paying close attention to is what the teaser does not show you. There are characters from Season 1 who are completely absent. There are locations that have not appeared yet. There are emotional threads from the Season 1 finale that the teaser deliberately sidesteps rather than picking back up. None of that is accidental. The creative team behind this show knows exactly what they are doing. They are showing you enough to confirm that Season 2 is going to be bigger and more painful than what came before. Cool. But they are keeping the most important cards so close to their chest that you cannot even see the edges of them. That kind of discipline in a teaser is rare, and it makes the wait for Season 2 feel both unbearable and absolutely necessary at the same time. Asterisk, here is the thing about a show that ends its first season the way Outlander, Blood of My Blood, did. It creates a debt. A creative debt that the second season has to pay back with everything it has. And based on everything we know so far, everything we have seen in that teaser, and everything the people behind this show have said about where it is going, Season 2 is not just planning to pay that debt back. It is planning to pay it back with interest. Let us start with the Scottish storyline, because that is where the emotional stakes feel the most immediate. Coming out of Season 1, Brian and Ellen ended that season standing at the edge of something neither of them could fully control. The forces working against their relationship were never just personal. They were political. They were tied to clan loyalty, to family pride, to a version of Scottish society that had very clear ideas about who was allowed to love who and under what conditions. Season 2 is going to push all of that to its absolute limit. The teaser already showed us a Brian who has been hardened by what came before. That hardness does not appear in a person without a reason. Something happened between the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2 that changed him at a fundamental level. And watching this season reveal exactly what that something was is going to be one of the most compelling threads in the entire story. Elon's arc in Season 2 is the one that has the potential to be truly extraordinary. Season 1 established her as a woman of enormous strength and will. But strength and will can only carry a person so far when the world they are living in is fundamentally designed to break them. What Season 2 appears to be setting up is a version of Ellen that has moved past fighting and into something more complicated, something closer to survival. When you watch the teaser and you see the way she is framed in those shots, you start to understand that her story this season is not going to be about whether she and Brian can be together. It is going to be about what being together is actually going to cost them both. That shift in question changes the entire emotional texture of the storyline, and it makes every scene between them carry a weight that was not there before. Now the Henry and Julia storyline is where Season 2 has the greatest opportunity to do something that most television shows never attempt. World War I is not a setting that lends itself to hope. It is a setting that was built on loss, on the systematic destruction of an entire generation of people who deserved better than what history gave them. Season 1 used that setting to create the conditions for love to exist in an unlikely place. Season 2 is going to use that same setting to test whether that love can survive. When the worst of what the war has to offer comes directly for the two people at the center of the story, Henry being pulled back toward danger is not just a plot development. It is a fundamental test of everything he and Julia built together in Season 1. And Julia, facing that reality alone, is going to show audiences a side of her character that the first season only hinted at. The casting for Season 2 carries the same core ensemble that made Season 1 work so well. Harriet Slater as Ellen, Jamie Roy as Brian, Hermione Corfield as Julia, and Jeremy Irvine as Henry are all returning. And what is worth noting about this cast is that they are not coming back to repeat what they did in Season 1. They are coming back to go further. Every performer in this show has talked about the emotional depth of the material they are working with in the new season, and the consistency of that conversation across different cast members tells you something important. It tells you that the writing in Season 2 is giving these actors somewhere genuinely new to go. That combination of a strong cast with stronger material than what they started with is one of the clearest signs that a second season is going to surpass its first. The fall 2026 premiere window on Starz is both exciting and slightly painful if you are someone who has been waiting since the Season 1 finale. But that wait has a purpose. Production on Season 2 began in Scotland, on the same stages where the original Outlander series filmed for 10 years. That location is not just a practical choice. It is a statement about the kind of show this is. It is a show that takes its roots seriously. It is a show that understands that the world it is building has to feel real and specific and grounded in a place that has actual history inside its walls. Filming in Scotland is not a budget decision. It is an artistic one. What? Season 2 of Outlander, Blood of My Blood, is ultimately going to be about is the price of love. Not the joy of it, not the beauty of it. The price. Both couples going into this season are about to discover that everything they fought for in Season 1 came with a cost that has not been collected yet. And Season 2 is going to be the season where that bill arrives. It is going to arrive differently for Brian and Ellen than it does for Henry and Julia, but it is going to arrive for both of them. And when it does, the audience that has been following these stories from the beginning is going to feel it in a way that only happens when a show has done its job right from the very start. That is what is coming. That is what the teaser is quietly promising underneath all of its carefully chosen images and deliberately heavy silences. Season 2 is not coming to comfort you. It is coming to complete something. And if the people behind this show deliver on everything they have set up, it is going to be one of those television seasons that you remember long after the final episode ends. The wait is going to be hard. But something this good is always worth it.